Okay, so everything is being recorded and I can edit out the beginning later. But hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's Q&A. We have Oriana Leckert on from Kickstarter, the Director of Publishing and Comics Outreach, which is like the Director of Publishing of all the things. So she is the expert in absolutely everything to do with books and works with authors. So all of the categories under publishing she is in charge of, and we thank her very much for taking time out of her busy schedule to help us today, help us get some answers to our many questions that we have. So I just want to start off with, if you can introduce yourself in the chat, that'd be great. I know some of you have already done that. Also, we're going to go through the questions that have already been submitted when you registered for this Q&A session. So some people can't make it, and we wanted to make sure that, I got all those questions. Some of the questions were repeated multiple times, so I condensed those and sort of cleaned them up to send them to Oriana before this session today so that we can be organized and not redundant at all and not waste any time. If you have any questions, please leave it in the Q&A box. So not in the chat, but in the Q&A, so that we can leave the chat for sort of messages back and forth, but the Q&A so I can keep track of that. And we'll go over any questions at the end if we have time, if Oriana might need to hop off and head to another meeting, but I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that I can. We are recording this, so everyone will get the replay, so don't worry about missing anything. All right, so Oriana, let's jump into it. I know you had some slides that you wanted to start off with to kind of orient people to Kickstarter.
Yeah, totally. Lisa, thank you so much for having me. This is a delight. Yeah, I'm going to do the awkward, I can't share my screen. Lisa, can you give me permission?
Of course. I'm going to make you the host. Then you should be able to.
I am the host now.
Now you can, now you have all the control.
All the control. So much power. All right, so let's see. Lisa, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see this?
I can see it, yes.
Amazing. So this will be pretty quick. It seems like this is definitely a 201 level group, but I just wanted to give some 101 level context for anyone who might need it. Hi, I'm Oriana Leckert. I'm the Director of Publishing and Comics Outreach. I've been at Kickstarter for just about 3 years. I was actually hired to grow our journalism category, and then I wound up getting promoted last December to managing all of, as Lisa said, publishing comics, which, this includes podcasts and magazines and literary spaces and really anything to do with the written word. So that's kind of my purview. My job broadly is to be out in the world of my categories, helping people understand what Kickstarter is and does, helping to set them up for success if they decide to use the platform. So that's me. Here's my email. I don't always give that out, but I think this is a small and engaged group. So please use it kindly. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Oriana, BKLYN, repping Brooklyn at all times. So what makes Kickstarter unique? There are a few ways that Kickstarter is kind of different among the whole crowdfunding landscape. Kickstarter's mission is to bring creative projects to life. That is our entire deal. You cannot use Kickstarter to fund medical bills, charitable donations, investments. It is only each and every project must create something new to share with the world. We believe in that mission so strongly that in 2015, the company was reincorporated as a public benefit corporation. That's a pretty strict kind of business outline. It means that we are basically a mission-driven for-profit company. We have to consider the implications of everything we do on the world at large and figure out if and whether it comes back to supporting our mission. So we can't be coerced by shareholders, stockholders, to make decisions that chase profits if they undermine our fundamental job, which is to help bring creative work to life. Kickstarter is also the only crowdfunding platform that has the all or nothing model. So if you set out to raise $10,000, you only raise $3,000, you don't get any of the money. We actually have designed that way to protect artists. The idea being, if you've done your homework and you've determined that it needs $10,000 to bring this specific book at this trim size and this page count into the world, as well as all of the associated rewards you've designed for it. If you raise half that money, you're actually in a really bad spot. You either have to create an inferior product, maybe not fulfill the campaign at all. In any case, let yourself and your backers down. So we want to actually protect writers and all creators from having to deal with that eventuality. So that's why we design things that way. And in fact, we have found over many years of doing this that the tangible urgency of that all or nothing model really does help propel creators to and often far beyond their funding goals. Quick snapshot of Kickstarter publishing. Since 2009, when Kickstarter launched, we have seen 62,000 projects launched in publishing, $254 million pledged. We crossed the 200 million milestone last November, and 2.6 million backers have pledged to bring these projects to life. 2020, despite all of its chaos and unpredictability, was the category's best year ever by $10 million. And 2021 is on track to be even better. Oh, I said this already last November. We crossed $200 million pledged to projects in publishing, and the current success rate for publishing projects is 53%, which is well over the site average. Another metric that we look at is projects with at least 25 backers. The reason why we think this is important is, there's always going to be a small contingent of people who kind of close their eyes, derp out a campaign, and just wait to be showered by magical internet money. If you take those folks off, if you look 25 backers, that's, it's a little bigger than kind of your mom, your best friend, your next door neighbor, the folks who are truly obligated to support everything that you do. So if you can hit 25 backers, if you're reaching beyond that like hyper inner circle, your chances of success in publishing 82% is tremendously high. So it's a pretty good time to be crowdfunding literary projects. Just a few of the benefits. Obviously, crowdfunding is about fundraising, but there's a lot of other good that you can do for yourself and your creative work through this process. You can tell the story of this book, all of your books, all of your sort of creative endeavors as a whole. It can help you build a fan base, especially if you're running, campaign after campaign. A well-run Kickstarter should run like a marketing campaign. So, you're shouting from the rooftops for 30 days, both to the audience that you already have and the audience that you want. So it's a good way to like bring people into the world of your work. You can connect directly with your readers in a way that is not really available through many other channels in the traditional publishing landscape. You can get their comments. You can use your campaign and the reader feedback to shape the actual book product through things like rewards and stretch goals and surveys. Should we make the cover red or blue? If we raise another $2,000, we'll add French flaps or ribbon bookmark, things like this. You can use the campaigns to sell pre-orders or your backlist. You can fund the project before you start, which is the reverse of the traditional publishing model, where you make profit and loss and kind of hope that your predictions mean that you'll earn out at the end. If you're funding book 6 in a series, you can use your rewards to sell through all of your backlist titles and individuals and bundles, and you can use it to create something unique and exciting. Kickstarter is a really good place for moonshot ideas, for the crazy things, for the stuff that is there an audience for this weird idea? Or can we do something big and ambitious that we would not be able to fund up front? This is a place, it's really a proving ground for that kind of project. That's my sort of like overviewy stuff. Dropping again, my email address and my Twitter and Instagram account. So I'm going to unshare, and now we can get to the real meat of this webinar.
Yay! Thank you so much. That was wonderful and awesome stats to know. I think the Kickstarter is so transparent with the statistics of the creator success rates and what exactly to include in a campaign that will increase your odds of success. I mean, a lot of people assume crowdfunding is this risky proposition, all or nothing. It's so risky. I'm like, it's not that risky. Like, there's a playbook of exactly what to include, how to do it, how to set it up. So there are so many resources on Kickstarter itself because, obviously you all want creators to succeed. I mean, it becomes better. The more projects that are on Kickstarter, the better it is for everyone. So thank you for sharing that. And I think, it's wonderful to like have Kickstarter as this resource providing all the statistics so we know and have more information and consequently a little more confidence before going into launch. Okay, so great. So let's start with question number 1. So I have them here. So how far in advance should someone be planning their campaign before they launch? And at what point should they be building the campaign page itself, given that there's a review time and approval time and all that kind of stuff factored in?
Totally, great question. And actually, before I jump in, I should have put this in my presentation, but I'm sharing, this is our creator tips page specific to publishing comics and journalism. It has tons more resources, a lot of recordings of me and my colleagues doing talks like this one, but also articles about how to build your audience, how to write a press release, as much as we could kind of think of that would be helpful to specifically publishing comics and journalism creators. So please feel free to access anything on there. So how far in advance should you be planning your campaign? Well, that answer totally depends on you, what you're doing, what else is happening in your life. As a general rule, we tell creators you want to start like 4 to 6 weeks in advance. The basic things you're going to need to do, you're going to write your campaign story, shoot a video if you're going to have one, coordinate your rewards, and figure out your promotional plan. So, if you got nothing else on your plate, this is the only thing that you're doing, maybe you can get all that done in a few weeks. If you have a job, a family, a life, other things, maybe you want to give yourself a couple of months. So yeah, it really depends on you. As far as building the campaign page, I see no reason to start doing that kind of immediately. I mean, that will help you, it will kind of help you piece everything together if you're working it out in the actual dashboard. So I don't see any reason not to start with that as soon as you're ready, put in a draft, refine it there. The review process itself, there's 2 steps in that process. Our payment processor is called Stripe. They take something like 3 to 5 days to verify your identity and the bank account that you've selected, and make sure that all of that is buttoned up. And then Kickstarter's trust and safety team reviews the actual projects to make sure that they fit within our rules. Some projects are auto approved, so that process takes 1 second. If it's not auto approved, that doesn't mean anything bad happens. It just means that our algorithm decided, it wasn't able to make that determination. And so it does need to go in front of a human being. That process can take, if that happens, another probably like 2 to 5 days. So that's the amount of time that you want to give yourself. Another thing to just mention, earlier this year, we launched a new feature called pre-launch pages. This is it has really shifted the way that people think about promoting their campaigns. So a pre-launch page, it's a very simple cover page. It sits on top of the campaign page itself. So it's at the same link where your live campaign will eventually live. It's just title, subtitle, project image, and a button that says follow me. This is crucial because those follows, anybody who follows your pre-launch is going to get an email from Kickstarter the moment that you launch. And we're seeing that pre-launch followers are converting to project backers at an extremely high rate and quickly. So shifting your promotional plan to a few weeks before you launch rather than the day you launch, we're seeing that it's tremendously helpful for campaigns. If you have a really strong first day, that's great for morale. It's great for your sort of narrative throughout the rest of the time you're promoting your campaign. So I would really recommend shifting things forward, getting your draft done, a month in advance, getting your pre-launch page up maybe 2 weeks in advance, doing a lot of work with that. It's probably just going to help you have a much smoother, stronger campaign.
Yeah. And I would say that it forces people to create a Kickstarter account if they don't already have one, to be notified when they launch. So it forces anyone who's not already on Kickstarter to create a Kickstarter account, which just reduces the friction on launch day for them to go get click. Because if you're sending it to, your Aunt Martha or something, and she's like, I don't know, be like, Aunt Martha, please go follow this, then it kind of walks her through that step so that on launch day, it's already click, as opposed
to.
That's
a terrific point, Lisa. Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. See, it's good. I'm a Kickstarter fan. I notice all the pros and cons. But it's good because it totally does shift the pre-launch marketing. Because before it was all, you would share your preview link to people and then kind of get feedback there and show people the backside of your campaign before it was live. But you don't necessarily want to do that for everyone. And then the pro of the pre-launch page is that it builds social proof. If you see there are 10 and I like how it doesn't display how many followers are following your campaign until you hit 10. So if it's like 2, it doesn't make you look like a loser because Kickstarter won't display that number until you have a crowd following. So I think that that's really good. Smart thinking all around. Smart thinking all around. Okay.
We're really pleased with it.
Yeah. So, second question. Okay. So this was very common. Everyone wants to know what time of year seems to perform better than others, specifically for publishing campaigns. So, I mean, we have, children's books and summer holidays. We have teachers who are going back to school, things like that. And I know this will be a huge, it depends, answer, I think, but if you have any insights, that'd be.
I do. Yeah, no, totally. And I mean, in some sense, the answer to every single one of these questions is it depends, but I think that's important because, what I want you all to do is think about who your specific audience is, where they are in the world, what they're doing, because that's going to help you figure out how to find them. So absolutely, if you're doing a children's book, you should not run that campaign in August when everybody's off school and their parents are not online and, things like that. If you're, I mean, here's a sort of very general overview of like how Kickstarter, the popularity throughout the year. January, things are pretty slow because everybody's got a little bit of a money hangover. Folks are kind of like coming back online from their vacations. February, it's cold. People are not quite ready yet to do any sort of big creative projects. By March, things really pick up a lot. March, April, May, a lot of action on the site. Tons of people, trying to get stuff done and do exciting things. By June, things start to dip. Slower in July, much slower in August. Everybody's on vacation, particularly folks in Europe who are, out on a boat for 6 weeks in the summer. September, October are the busiest months on the site, and into right now, actually the beginning of November, because everybody wants to get, September is sort of like back to school, back to life, post summer. And then everybody wants to get everything done before American Thanksgiving, which is the sort of tip into the whole holiday season. And then in December, I was saying this, I think before we started recording, but Kickstarter is one of the few sort of commerce-based platforms that's not terrific to be doing in December because everybody really wants that instant gratification of the holidays. If you back a Kickstarter campaign in December, you're probably not going to have something to put under the tree next to the menorah, things like that. So that's a broad strokes overview, but, there's pros and cons to every season and every time. I mean, if you do it in September when everybody's on the site, that does definitely mean there's a lot more kind of random browsers and you might get traffic that way. It also means there's a lot more people competing for those browsers' eyes and clicks. Whereas if you run in January, the site's pretty empty. You're probably going to get a little bit more, you might land in more Kickstarter newsletters or get some bumps on social because we're looking harder, for cool projects. Click. You can also think about sort of like if you are a Black creator running a project during Black History Month, which is February in the US, and I think it's in the fall in the UK, I forget, but there are lots of, you can time your campaign to something that's happening in the world if that's going to give you a nice press hook, provided that, don't go for a press hook over that will make you kind of launch your campaign before it's ready or do something at a time when your audience just might not be paying enough attention. That's the most important thing. When you are fully ready to run it and when you know that you will have an easy time reaching your most dedicated supporters, everything else sort of is less important but worth considering. And then one other thing I'll just quickly mention, in January, in sort of a way to counteract the fact that our platform is so quiet, we run a creator prompt every year called Make 100. It is an invitation for creators to do a campaign, limited small campaign that makes 100 of anything. And that could be 100 zines, 100 podcast episodes, 100 ink drawings, anything that you can think of. This is a prompt that you can tag yourself into. I can share the landing page. It's a great starter campaign if you've never run one before.
If you want to test something new. Yeah.
We see a lot of Kickstarter employees running Make 100 projects. It's fun, it's easy, it's, you're sitting at home and you're cold and nothing else is going on. So why not start the year off with a cool creative thing? So
really cool. And just to clarify, the Make 100 is not like limited to 100 sold units of that thing. It's just like 100 illustrations or 100 short stories or 100. It's like the thing you're creating has 100 things in it, not sold 100 units or limited to 100 backers. Is that right? Just to
yeah, I mean, there are some, people, like, the idea is to make 100 zines. So
okay.
if you are hoping to make 1,000 zines, I mean, you could, but that's kind of like counter to the spirit of the
It's supposed to be
idea.
small.
Yeah, it's meant to be small, but there are also, we see a lot of, one of my creators who does these sort of high-end letterpress books. I think he's going to run a project where he's not going to say what the book is. Instead, he's going to get 100 backers, which he will turn into kind of a committee to design the book interactively with him. So yeah, and we also see people, another a duo who makes comics. They're running a regular campaign for as many as they can sell, but they will have one tier with like a special certain kind of cover, and there will be only 100 of that specific edition of the book.
Cool.
So there's a lot of space
Cool.
within it.
Okay, so there's flexibility and creativity, as usual, as usual.
Of course.
Okay, good. Okay, next question. So should someone's book be nearly finished before launch, or alternatively, how far along should someone's book be before launching on Kickstarter?
So it depends. You can message your campaign any way you like, so long as you think your backers are going to be, compelled by it. I think many people in the publishing space are basically running pre-launch campaigns. They're basically, the book is done, it's edited, it's typeset, it's designed. They just need the money to send it to the printer, or they need the money for, the special features that I keep talking about, stuff like that. That is absolutely not to say that you can't say, I have an idea, I haven't started writing yet, I need to fund my life while I am doing this creative endeavor. The most important thing is to be extremely transparent with your backers. Don't obfuscate the idea that, you actually haven't started writing yet, because you want to manage everybody's expectations. If it's January, you're running a campaign with only an outline, nobody's getting books for another year or more. So, so long as you lay that out and people understand what they're getting into, if your backers are convinced by your pitch, they will support the work that you're doing. So just make sure you're being extremely clear, extremely transparent. The other sort of another thing to consider if you're way in the early stages is that it is really important to have a budget. You need to know what your printing costs will be, what your mailing costs, your shipping costs. So the farther in advance you're doing it, the larger is the likelihood that these costs could shift. You might wind up, maybe you think the book will be 150 pages, but it winds up at 200 pages. Now all of your, budgets are askew. So you just want to do as much work as possible to understand each step of where things are going to go, make sure that you're budgeting in order to protect yourself and your backers, that you'll be able to afford everything that you say you're going to do.
Right, that's great advice. Next question, can you clarify the rules on book donations for charities or nonprofits? Some people are donating to hospitals, especially children's books. I see this a lot, or they're donating to developing countries because they're wanting to share literary arts around the world. So can you just clarify on what's the best way to do this, staying in line with Kickstarter's rules on no donations kind of thing?
Totally, yeah. So the answer is all the money raised for your campaign must go toward funding the thing you're making. So you can't ever say 10% of our proceeds will be donated to X charity, or we're raising, $1 off the cover price of every book. So you can never donate money, but you can always donate the thing that you're making. This is not just for publishing, but for any campaign. So yeah, any sort of, we'll give books to this, partner organization. We will put books in the hands of high school students in marginalized communities. We'll give books to hospitals, to school. Anything like that is actually totally fine, so long as it's clear from the campaign that the money is going to making the books, and then what you do with the books. We've also seen some books with a charitable bent will say the money is going toward producing this book, which we will then sell at conventions or at bookstores or et cetera. And part of those proceeds will be donated to XYZ place, so long as it's clear that the campaign funds are actually going to the book itself. And then as far as the mechanism for getting the books donated via the campaign, you can certainly just say, I will buy one book to send to X hospital. You can also do a give one, get one reward tier, which we see a lot, which is you pay for 2 books, one comes to you, the other goes to the partner organization or the fulfillment center in another country to go to, people in unhoused people and, like whatever it is. Those are the ways that you can kind of get them sent to the places that you want them to go.
And that's great, because I think there's so many readers who do want to support you either as an author, or they do believe in the mission, but they don't necessarily want the book for themselves if they don't have children, or if they don't particularly care about the topic you're doing, but they still want to support you. So it's nice that you can offer that as a way to send that out. Great.
Yeah.
So if, I work with a lot of authors who have multiple books in their roster, and they're so excited and they want to put multiple books into one campaign. And I kind of like, I think each book deserves its own campaign. But would you recommend multiple campaigns or one single large campaign with multiple books in it?
I think it depends. It depends. No, it depends on, kind of who you are, where you are in your literary process, and what your audience looks like. I mean, we actually see a lot of independent publishing companies that will fund a season or a trilogy, or I've even seen a year's worth of books. There's a inclusive children's book publisher called Flamingo Rampant, and I think they've run 3 annual campaigns, each one to fund their entire year of books. So that can totally happen, but they have a very dedicated audience that is, ready to fund them to the tune of $70,000, $80,000, which is what it costs for them to do an entire year's worth of books. If you are an emerging writer, and you're kind of just building your following and your readership, it's probably not a great idea to try to fund, a 6-book series, because that's a lot of money. It's a lot of commitment. The fulfillment timeline for that would be tremendously long. So yeah, it depends where you are, what you're doing, what you can get. I mean, there are certainly good arguments to be made for funding more than one book at a time if you are at the stage of your literary career where that actually makes sense for you.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to the size of your audience and your campaign goal to see if you can do it, really. What is the biggest mistake you see people making on their campaign page itself?
Yeah, let's see. One big mistake is not including imagery. Kickstarter lives on the internet, and the internet is a very visual medium. So if I click open your campaign and I'm greeted with a wall of text, that's bad. It's people are just like not. People's brains are no longer trained to read it. They're going to click away and you're going to lose them. Another thing I see is an assumption that every single potential backer will read every single word that you write. We're all writers. I get it. I wish that were true. It's not true. You want to, although Kickstarter is largely, the majority of our backers are on desktops or laptops, you want to think about your campaign as viewed on a cell phone. What somebody would see when they open it is your title, your subtitle, your project image, and the first sentence. You want to have told your whole story with just those pieces. Of course, there will be plenty of people who continue reading, especially if you make your opening really compelling, but we're all addled. Our brains are all broken by the internet. Someone who clicks to your page, you want them to get it right away. So that's, I would say, how to think about designing the top of your page. And then, I come from a journalism background, so I approach this from the mindset of the most important information first, short, punchy sentences, lots of imagery. Those are all sort of like good tips for your campaign page. I don't know, I think those are probably the biggest mistakes I see, making the page just not visually appealing and not knowing how to summarize your own project.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to skip to the other question that has, what steps can we take to increase our project's visibility and searchability on the platform? Like I know you said, title, subtitle, should we be putting keywords in there because when someone searches for our project, like let's say, someone misspells my name and they won't be able to find me, but they can remember my book title. Is that something, I'm just,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's a great question. Most of our site is governed by algorithms, just like the rest of the internet. So I don't have tips for like gaming them particularly. I wouldn't try to do the sort of like clickbaity SEO stuff of like hashtag children, hashtag kids books, like all the synonyms and that sort of thing. I mean, the truth is, in a publishing context, so one of the things you'll see in your creator dashboard, there's a lot of charts and analytics to sort of track what's happening. One of them, we have a pie chart at the top that tracks what percentage of your backers are coming through your own efforts and which are coming through sort of Kickstarter's efforts through, being seen in a macro on our site, being included in a newsletter, things like this. In publishing, we see about probably like 15 to 30% of your backers are coming from Kickstarter, and the rest are coming through the things that you're doing, the ways that you're sending your project out. So what that means is that the vast majority of the people landing on the page clicked a link that you kind of gave them, whether you tweeted it or got a piece of press or, a friend of yours shared it in their newsletter. That's how people are coming. So the percentage of people who are like typing in Kickstarter.com and then Googling, children's books about cats, it's pretty small. So I wouldn't spend too much time thinking about that. If you make a beautiful campaign, if you make it clear and compelling and interesting, if it's in the proper subcategory, stuff like that, it'll get elevated in our algorithms. I don't think you need to play a lot of games trying to like increase visibility that way.
Yeah, there is a campaign I'm looking for, and I keep searching for it. I cannot find it on Kickstarter, so I'll message you separately because I'm like, I need to find this one campaign. But it's okay, that's a different story. And your project does live on Kickstarter for forever. So if you do put your book title in the Kickstarter title, when people Google your book title later, the Kickstarter campaign link will come up. So,
and in fact, because we know that will happen, there's a feature once your campaign has been successfully funded, we have a feature called Spotlight where you can kind of like redesign some elements of the page, and most importantly, put in a new CTA. So that button that used to say back the campaign, we understand like it's a bummer if someone lands there and they're like, well, this campaign is over and I can't back it, and then they have to leave. We've made it so you can change that to send people to your website, to your Amazon page, your bookshop page, to wherever it is in the world that you would rather them go, so that all of that sort of like SEO and stuff isn't wasted.
Exactly.
Once the campaign is closed.
Yeah, that's a great feature. Okay, next question. What are the biggest sources of backers for book projects in your opinion? Are most backers coming from links on Facebook, YouTube, email, Twitter? What have you seen?
Yeah, totally. So it depends. But the highest conversion rate across all categories is direct emails. So those individual emails that you send to your inner circle, the newsletters that you share with your most fervent supporters, those are always, always, always the most successful at converting people to backers. Beyond that, it varies a little bit category to category. When I was doing journalism, Twitter was by far driving the most backings, whereas publishing tends to be a little more toward Facebook. But also all of these platforms are fracturing at this point. We've got 2 romance novel campaigns on the site right now, and the majority of their backings are coming from TikTok because those 2 writers are both like really big on TikTok. I've heard about people using dating apps to promote their book projects. Yeah, I mean, you should be shooting your shot everywhere you can.
Literally, like write your bit.ly short link on like the bathroom stall. Like just put it everywhere. Absolutely. You never know.
Why not? Absolutely. So one thing I tell people, the sun has just come crashing in, getting out of that spotlight. When you are thinking about promoting your Kickstarter campaign, you want to go with a social platform where you are already the strongest, where you've already done the work to build your audience. So if you've got a really solid following on YouTube, do not feel that you should start a TikTok account just because you're launching tomorrow and you've heard that book talk is a thing. It will feel inauthentic and it won't be worthwhile. So concentrate on, network building and audience building and, getting your followers up wherever it is in the world that you want to be doing that, and then use those channels to promote the campaign where you've already got some traction and some audience, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And the best bang for your buck is really emails. Get as many emails as you can, because then you can see who's who's clicking and who's monitoring their emails. And then you can retarget people who haven't opened your email with a different message. So I'm
Definitely.
really promote email, and like everyone's like, they shy away from it. Like, just trust me.
No, it's
So
absolutely, that's the
yeah,
way to
so
go.
important. So here is where do you see authors spending too much time or energy that it like wasting their time that doesn't yield backers? You mentioned it a little bit in terms of like starting on a new
Yeah.
site where they don't have an audience, but is there any other place where you see people wasting time?
I think one thing that I often hear is a waste of time is a kind of haphazard, like post promotion on like Facebook or Twitter, or Insta, these sort of like, I don't know, I'll throw $20 to promote this post and we'll see what happens. Obviously social media marketing is big business, and you can certainly have a promotional plan on socials with some paid posts that's going to be tremendously effective. But that largely, you probably want to, if that's what you're going for, you probably want to be working with someone, a PR agent, a marketing firm, like someone who kind of already knows how to be in that system. If you're, as I said, a kind of amateur, haphazard paid promotional plan is unlikely to drive a lot of backings, and you're probably going to feel like you've wasted your money too. So I would say, figure out if this is a smallish campaign that you can just do through like authentic posts and emails, keep it there. If you're doing a very large, ambitious campaign, it's probably a good idea to at least think about paying someone to help you with your marketing and promotion.
Yeah.
Spending too much time and energy that doesn't yield backers. I don't know. I don't really think, I don't think, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I generally feel like there are not a lot of bad tactics in promotion. I mean, I just talked about promoting your campaign on a dating app. So, one thing I think like people can get frustrated if they're like, I tweeted it 4 times and like my dashboard shows that no backers are coming from Twitter. I think about a lot of this stuff. If you work on a political campaign, they often talk about like 7 touches. Like, you're not going to get a vote for your candidate until the voter has seen their name on a billboard, on a flyer, in an email, on the phone. Like it builds and builds. So there's no real way of knowing in the world, like if somebody sees this tweet and they think about it, they're like busy and maybe they'll come back tomorrow. It's not until they notice this Facebook post next week that they actually do click through. That doesn't mean that the initial tweet yielded no backers. It's all kind of part of building the momentum and the enthusiasm and just like keeping the word in people's ears and like on people's minds. So I think there's probably not a lot of bad tactics when you're dealing with campaign promotion.
Yeah, it's hard to know and interpret. You want to interpret your statistics carefully and all these insights, because we have insights on Instagram and Facebook and everything. And it's hard when you're trying to run like, okay, I want to hit these milestones before I launch. I know I have an engaged audience and everything's good. But yeah, it's good to know that like, look, someone will see you last week and they may not have seen that post this week. And so you just kind of, I would say, err on the side of posting obnoxiously, like way more than you think. It's going to feel obnoxious to you because it's you see 100% of your posts, but no one else is seeing 100% of your posts. People are seeing a fraction, a small fraction of your posts. And the same thing with emails. You can send out, way more emails than I think people think there is tolerance for, but people ignore emails all the time. It has nothing to do with, you're not bothering anyone. So
totally.
It's like a mental switch.
But also I think one thing that's important is to like, we talked at the beginning about like, how long are you going to prepare for your campaign? Some of that prep work is, okay, well, what are you going to say in all of these posts and all of these emails? I totally agree. You probably should be posting and emailing more than you feel extremely comfortable about. It's another one of the reasons why like having a fixed 30-day campaign is helpful, because you're like, all right, this is going to be a lot for exactly this amount of time. And then everybody knows that, you're kind of done with it. But think about what you're going to say. And you can't really just tweet every day, like, back my book, back my book, back my book. Like, that's bad. So, consider how you're going to talk about it, different ways that you'll come at the same kind of thing, different ways you'll tell your story, details about yourself as a creator and an author that you'll want to share, other contributors you could highlight, specific rewards you could spotlight, like think about a lot of different ways. Maybe write yourself 30 tweets or 60 tweets, I guess, just that are all slightly different, so you can figure out how best to keep talking about it over and over and over.
Right, all these different angles. It's great. Is there a time frame that matters to backers in terms of delivering the final reward? We talked about it a little bit on timing, but would you say like what's the maximum that backers should wait before they get your final product?
It depends. The answer is what matters to backers is transparency. If you say we're sending this book to the printer the day the campaign closes, it's July right now, you're going to have books in your hands by November. If the supply chain chaos rears its head and the paper shortage suddenly impacts you and the books aren't in people's hands until the following February, you're going to have a lot of angry backers. Whereas if you say you're going to get your books by June and they actually get them in May, people are going to be over the moon. So build yourself a huge buffer, manage those expectations, be as transparent as possible, and then like add 3 more months to your anticipated delivery date so that you can under promise and over deliver. That's the way to make sure that your backers are happy.
Always, always. Do you have a short list of Facebook ad experts who would be suitable for authors to work with on Kickstarter book campaigns? I know a lot of like ad experts, they only work with like the big
Right.
goal campaign. So it's hard to find people who are willing to help smaller creators.
I don't actually, that's just not really a thing that we kind of sanction on a company level. I think,
Yeah, that makes
you
sense.
gotta do your homework, talk to other Kickstarter creators, talk to other authors, approach anyone who's offering you services for money on the internet with a healthy degree of skepticism. Make sure, check their references or whatever it is that you need to do a lot of homework to make sure that you're working with somebody who's legitimate and who's going to really help you. And then also keep in mind, like there's no guarantees, which in fact, if someone says to you, like, we will get you X $1,000 in backings, that's a huge red flag. But also, you can't expect that people can honestly predict the number of backers, the number of dollars, the number of, that these ad campaigns could yield. So understand that there's going to be a little bit of flexibility with it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so big question. What do you look for when assessing campaigns for the Project We Love badge?
Yeah, totally. This is kind of a company-wide effort. It's largely handled by our editorial team, but there's people all over the company, our engineers, our, customer support folks. Everybody's looking at campaigns to find, the most wonderful projects that deserve to be elevated all the time. I think, I can share, I have a link about what we look for, but the broad strokes are make a beautiful campaign, have a clear title and subtitle, make sure you're in the right category, have a compelling and exciting project image that's not kind of larded up with a bunch of text overlays. It doesn't look like really salesy. Make sure that the thing that you're creating is both like beautiful and needed in the world, and also that you are the unique and correct person to be making it. We certainly we work a lot to elevate creators from marginalized communities and like projects that are targeted toward underserved people and creative ideas. But the truth is really like people get pretty hung up on the Projects We Love badge. I mean, of course it matters. It's a nice like badge of, approval, but make the best campaign that you can make and make sure that like your followers who love you will see it. Your Aunt Martha is not going to know whether or not you have a Projects We Love badge or even understand what that means. Find your audience and make a project that that's really going to resonate with them. That's way more important than any sort of external badge of validation.
Yeah. There's so many authors who are like, I want the Project We Love badge. I'm like, do you love your project? Because you're the one who totally matters the most. Like you have to love your project first.
And keep in mind, there are tens of thousands of projects on the site at any given time. Like we can't, they can't all be A+, and that's fine. There's plenty of room for, all sorts of levels of projects.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, the last one is just if any final tips you have. So I'm going to hold off on that, and we're going to head to the Q&A box. If you have questions that came up during this conversation, please go there. Donna, it looks like Donna posted first. Is the Make 100 good for someone who's never done a Kickstarter before?
Yeah, it's a lovely starter campaign, because it's very simple. You don't have, a lot of people can get really carried away with Kickstarter campaigns with, tons of reward tiers and stretch goals and all sorts of like machinations. I make 100. It's really pure and simple. I'm just going to make, 100 postcards with pictures of cats. I'm just going to make, 100. Yeah, like whatever it is, you can make it. And there's tons of examples on that landing page that I shared earlier. Let me know if I need to share that again. But yeah, it's a great way to just kind of get your feet wet, test the process, see, kind of how it all works and whether it appeals to you and the people who are interested in the work that you're doing. So yeah, I would say it's an excellent first campaign.
Yeah, great. Jasmine says, what is a great way to get your stretch goals communicated to backers without coming off as greedy or disingenuous?
Yeah, so stretch goals we haven't really talked about yet. I will first start by saying stretch goals it's strictly semantic and they are designed to help keep your enthusiasm up while a campaign is running and after it has already funded. What I mean by semantic is that I've made a lot of, I keep saying that Kickstarter is all or nothing. If you say you're going to raise 10,000 and you don't get there, you don't get the money. That's not true for stretch goals. If you say your campaign goal is 10,000, you reach it, and then you say our stretch goal is 15,000, our stretch goal is 50,000. You don't have to reach your stretch goal. Like once you've hit your base goal, you're getting all the money no matter what. So this is largely about marketing and sort of messaging and audience building. The question was without sounding greedy or disingenuous. Make sure that your stretch goals are clear. That's how, not to be disingenuous is how, you say, here's what we're going to do. And this is why we need more money to do that thing. It can certainly be, how not to sound greedy is the stuff improving the product, adding new rewards, like things that you legitimately could make a case that you would need more money to do. Another thing, however, to note is there's no requirement to do stretch goals. People see a lot of these like really fancy, high profile campaigns that are raising millions of dollars in tabletop games and design and tech with like dozens of crazy stretch goals. Like, first of all, those campaigns are run by companies. There are huge teams behind them doing that work. It does not need to be replicated by individual authors, like making their small books. And stretch goals are also a way that creators can get themselves into trouble. Like we've talked a lot about all the groundwork you need to lay to make sure that you've got quotes from printers and, all of your costs are made sense of before you launch. And then in the heat of the campaign, maybe you're like, oh, I want to make enamel pins. I don't know. I'm sure they'll just cost $5. We'll just do them. Like, and then you find out afterward that like, no, they cost $20 or whatever. And like, right. You've now like overpromised and, screwed yourself over. So think really hard about whether you even want to do stretch goals. I mean, if you're running a pre-sale campaign where, your main goal is to get people to buy the book, people are going to want to keep buying the book whether or not you're funded. So you don't need to do a lot of tricks to like keep bringing people in. So just approach stretch goals, really carefully with the same level of like diligence as you did your original goal. Make sure that like it's something you want to do, that you understand what all of the implications will be for fulfillment, and that you message it, clearly and honestly like you would anything else in your campaign.
Exactly. I have so many authors who are like focused on the stretch goals. Like we need to plan our stretch goals. I'm like, you can do that on the fly. Yeah. You can do a survey and say, what do you want your stretch goals to be to your existing backers? But like, don't waste your time there. I would much rather spend your very limited time building your audience. Otherwise, you don't need to worry about stretch goal at all. Like you need to get to your goal first, and then you can worry about stretch goals. You can create stretch goals in 20 minutes. Like you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. So I would suggest that.
Yeah.
How do you take, that's a great question. How do you take backers who are older, maybe unfamiliar with crowdfunding in general, and don't know how to navigate the platform?
Yeah, audience education, that's always going to be a component here. I've seen people another new feature that we've recently rolled out is called add-ons, which we didn't used to have. And when that was still in beta, we had a small cohort testing it. And like I saw one creator actually make GIFs of the process of managing your pledge and changing to add-ons and like this and that. So, it depends It depends what the makeup is of your audience. If we're just talking about your Aunt Martha, maybe you just give her a call and you like walk her through how to do it. If you are instead talking about marketing to a community that really does require a lot of extra education about what the platform is and does, tailor your messaging specifically to that community. You can certainly include pictures, you can send them to the Kickstarter Help Center, you can do the 5 most important things to know about Kickstarter to emphasize the all or nothing, the sort of urgency of doing it within this window, the ways that you make an account, like the things that you will need to have, whatever you need to help your audience understand what this is and why it's important, what they need to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I think just holding their hand through the process is probably the best way, but doing it in mass is quite a challenge. And I understand that. Having worked with authors who have older audiences, it does take a lot. It takes a lot more effort to do that audience education. I think since we're in the Kickstarter space, we just assume everyone knows and everyone's on board and everyone's excited, but it's not the case. And we have to assume that people know nothing about Kickstarter and start there, and repeat again the 7 times, repeat that information over and over, the purpose, why you're doing it, and then how to do it. Okay, there's another question. Do backers like to be involved in the process of developing the project, like a children's book campaign, if it's launched in the final stages of illustration, or is it better to run it like a pre-sale? This is from Karina again.
It depends who your audience is. Sometimes one, sometimes the other. The unique, like Kickstarter gives you the unique ability to make your backers involved in the process of creation. Again, making sure that you're not offering things that are going to get you in trouble with money or fulfillment or things like that. I think any audience is going to be made up of both, actually. I think there are always going to be some people who just want to support you, just want the book, like trust you to do the process and make the thing that you're trying to make. And then I think there will always be some people who are like, maybe the cover should be green. Why didn't you get this other person to design a variant cover? Why don't you have, things this way or that way? And it's up to you how much you want to involve other people in your creative vision and how you execute it.
Exactly. And if you don't want input from your backers, don't offer that as an option.
Totally.
You can just limit it. Like, this is the book you're getting. Marissa says, in the process of building my audience, does everyone who launches on Kickstarter have a significant following? How do individuals build that audience before a product is created? Well, that's $1 million question right there.
Yeah, right. Not everyone who launches has a significant following, but you do need to have enough self-awareness to be able to find the balance between what you need as far as how many dollars it will cost to make your project and what you can get as far as how many people are going to be able to be made aware of what you're doing. Sorry, now I want to look at the question again.
Oh, it's answered in the Q&A. Sorry.
I've got it. Yeah. So how do individuals build that audience before a product is created? There's a tremendous amount of information on the internet about how to build an audience. There's certainly there's a piece on that Publishing Creator Tips page that I commissioned earlier this year from someone like Lisa, another campaign consultant, addressing exactly that. Broad strokes, figure out where the people are that you want to reach and how you can talk to them and get them to be aware of and open about what you're doing. If you're writing a children's book, find children's book groups on Facebook, find Reddit threads where people talk about the specific kinds of kids books, go to your local library and see where the parents are, whatever, figure out where those people are in the world, and then engage with them in an authentic way long before you're saying to them, can you give me some money to make my book? Figure out what people are interested in, support other people who are doing the same kinds of things, make yourself indispensable to and exciting to the kinds of people who you ultimately want to be supporting your campaign work.
Yeah, and just to clarify, all the work you're doing, building your audience, is work you have to do anyway. Like whether you crowdfund or launch your book, anyway, you have to find your readers, you have to do the work. So it's work you're going to do anyway. You might as well launch a campaign and, in my opinion, get a much higher amount per reader. So the amount of effort you put into is coming out at around my authors average $50 per backer, as opposed to launching a book on Amazon where your royalty is $3 per backer per reader. So the amount of work you have to do per reader might as well launch it on Kickstarter and get a much higher return on your investment.
Yeah.
Yes, Tolu, there is a replay of the session. It's being recorded, don't worry. Okay, and Anonymous says, I want to target corporations to back at much larger amounts, I'm assuming like thousands. If businesses cannot write off the contributions, would that discourage them for backing? I'm assuming, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the corporation. It depends on, their needs and goals. I would say if you're targeting large donors, you want to think really carefully about what rewards you're offering them. So, I would, if you're looking at like in the thousands, you probably want like individualized rewards per, so think about what that corporation wants. If they can't get a tax write-off, do they want you to come do like a lunch and learn session with them? Do they want some kind of like charitable component of donating books to, some kind of a nonprofit? I mean, yeah, I would say you're going to just need to talk to folks at those corporations first and figure out what they're looking for, and then how you can make your rewards appeal to them.
Yeah, those will be pre-sold before you launch. So all of that is in the pre-launch period. So don't try to do that after. That's going to be tough. Yeah. Anonymous also said, I've seen a lot of people name their tiers. Oh, okay, Oriana, maybe you have insights on this. I personally, I think it should be clear. It should be like 3 books, 2 books, whatever it is, rather than like the friendly friend or the neighborly neighbor. Like, I don't know, because I feel like people are on their phones, they want it to be clear and they just pick and choose. But I don't know if you have a preference.
It depends. It depends on your audience. It depends on what they like and what they're interested in. I've certainly seen it being effective both ways. I mean, if you give your reward tiers a funny, like on theme kind of name, make sure the rest of the text in that box is very clear about what they're getting. I don't know if it works with what you're doing. I'm not opposed to the friendly friend and the neighborly neighbor. But yeah, do make sure maybe in multiple places on the campaign page that people know exactly what they're getting in each box.
And Kickstarter has the bulleted option, so you can clearly specify exactly what is in each one. Would you consider a coffee table art book the same as a published book? What should we take the steps in finding backers? Yeah, it's good. I don't know about the coffee table art book. Is there a category for?
We do have a category for art books. I'm not.
But that would not be the same as the children's book. No, I don't think.
I don't think so. I mean, I guess you could make an art book that's for children. I'm not sure if the thrust of this question is about what category you put it in on the site, or how you talk to your printers, or how you build your audience, but I don't know. Subcategories on the site don't matter a lot. I talked before about how most of your backers are coming from the work that you're doing out in the world. They're not going to notice whether your book is in publishing or art books or photo books or whatever.
And it's not like Amazon. I know some people like to game the campaigns or the categories on Amazon. It's not like that. It's not like, oh, you're the number one. You're the number one in this obscure categories. Therefore, you're at the top of the list. It's like, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. And then, if you're talking about printer costs, you got to talk to the printers. I mean, they'll be able to tell you what kind of paper you need for the different kinds of books. But yeah, finding backers and audience building is relatively the same advice, no matter what subcategory your work is in.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, good. Well, I think that is it. Any final tips, Oriana, before we close?
I will just say that I am absolutely happy to go over a campaign draft before you launch. If people would like me to do that, in order for me to do that, please give me time. Do not email me on a Sunday night and let me know that you're launching Monday morning and can I give you a review. I'm not saying that as a hypothetical. It happens to me every week. So yeah, give me a week before you launch. I'm happy to take a look. Find me on the internet. You can always slide into my DMs if you have more questions for me. It is literally my job to help set creators up for success on our platform. And also there's about 150 projects launching in my categories each week. So please be gentle about how much time I might be able to dedicate to your specific, beautiful, perfect, wonderful, unique project. I really want to help, but I can't do everything. So
what a generous offer. Just as someone who works with authors, do not abuse this. Yeah. Do not send it to Oriana when it's like half finished. Like when people are like, can you give me feedback on my campaign? And it's not done. Yeah. And I'm like, you don't have a video. And they're like, yeah, I'm still working on it. I'm like, don't send it to me.
Bad use of all of our time.
It should be 110% done. This should be the version you're ready to launch with. And you're looking for showstoppers, like things like, don't send it if there's grammatical errors or spelling errors, like please don't waste Oriana's time. You want her stamp of approval and you want her to be like, yes, congratulations. And like to write in her calendar, I'm so impressed by this campaign. I'm going to retweet it on launch day, not, oh my gosh, this is a train wreck. Let's fix this. Like, no, that's not her job. That's not her job.
Thank you, Lisa. That's much more blunt than I would have felt good being, but everything you said is correct.
Well, when you have an offer like that, you just want to just be like, send me the creme de la creme. I don't want to see your half finished works here. Well, good. Well, thank you again so much. Again, everyone, this is being recorded and there will be a replay so you can access it later. Also, I didn't introduce myself. I am Lisa Ferland. I'm a crowdfunding consultant for authors. Obviously, I push more authors towards Kickstarter, which is why I reached out to Oriana to do this. But I also help authors with Indiegogo and crowdfunding in general. There are pros and cons to every platform. So if that's something that you're struggling with or want to talk about, I'm happy to do that as well. So, okay, well, thank you so much. And hope everyone enjoys the rest of your Monday. What a productive way to start our week.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. And by the way, even though I work at Kickstarter, Lisa's absolutely right. The different platforms serve different needs for different authors. So you should definitely think through where you belong before you launch. So yeah,
I think Kickstarter has one of the highest success rates, I think, in terms because of the all or nothing model, because of the community that is built. And I think that's something we didn't really talk about is be a part of the community, back other campaigns in your niche, like really reach out to other creators and do all of that and help each other, help share other campaigns on their launch day. And then, you have to bank a lot of goodwill with a lot of people because when it's your turn to launch, hopefully you're going to cash in on some of that good karma you've been adding to, but it requires being, an active member of the community and really helping each other. So
totally. Thank you again so much, Lisa. Thank you everyone who asked such good questions. This was a delight.
Yes. Great. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.